Have you ever asked somebody to do something simple and instead of refusal, you got anxiety, distress, or even meltdown? Now, you may label it as defiance, but it may be their need to maintain autonomy. What's the difference? Well, today we're diving into one of the fastest growing conversations in education and care, pathological demand avoidance, or PDA, though many now prefer to use a more compassionate term of a persistent drive for autonomy. So whether you work with children, adults, or are navigating this yourself, understanding this need for autonomy is key to supporting neurodivergent individuals with empathy and effectiveness. If you are caring for someone else, whether paid or unpaid, and no matter how many hours you do it, did you realise that you may be missing out on thousands of pounds of discounts for things that you may use every day? The Able to Care podcast is proud to be sponsored by the UK's #1 carers card. Started by two best friends who recognise that carers deserve better and are 100% committed to helping to change the lives of all carers and bringing them together as a strong community. Carers Card UK provides support, recognition and rewards. It offers reassurance by providing an ID card that helps access emergency information when needed, while also unlocking discounts, a wellbeing hub, a carers circle tool and a community through their app. All of this for less than the price of a box of chocolates a year. There are discounts on gym membership, days out, electrical goods, clothing and even glasses. Let others know you care while taking a little care of yourself with an ID card you can be proud of. Visit carerscarduk.co.uk/promo code/able to care today to order yours. So hello and welcome to the Able to Care podcast. So today we're going to be talking about PDA, or persistent drive for autonomy, or as it's diagnosed, pathological demand avoidance. So what is demand avoidance? Well, it's not about being difficult or disobedient. It's a response to anxiety, a perceived loss of control in a situation. And when somebody feels overwhelmed, either by expectations or demands put on them by other people, even everyday tasks like brushing their teeth or answering a question can trigger an anxiety response. Now, traditionally, this has been referred to as just naughty kids. But increasingly, people are now understanding a condition called pathological demand avoidance, a profile often associated with autism, but increasingly recognized as part of the broader neurodiversity spectrum. And language matters. And within the community, many people are leading the shift towards calling it a persistent drive for autonomy. Now, what's in the name? Well, the language used really matters. This shift in terminology is a little more than just semantics. It's about shifting to a mentality of respect, understanding, and perspective. It's changing the lens. Because the term pathological suggests illness, something that's wrong or broken in a person. For many people, this isn't just something they do, it's part of who they are. And it really isn't really seen as pathology, it's protection. It's a persistent drive, that need to maintain control, that need to have autonomy over what you're doing. Now, this is a deeply human need. We have to understand that human beings feel safer when we are in a state of control. We desire control more than any other animal is. If you think about the building you're in right now, we have manipulated the environment and materials to create this building that you're currently in now, to keep you safe from the natural elements and the natural circumstances that happen every day. And it allows you to feel safe. I often use the example that if I'm reading a book outside and the wind blows, and it changes the pages I'm reading, I don't just carry on reading from wherever the wind has blown it to. I turn it back because I need that control over that situation. So control helps us to feel safe. Now, when we're looking at this drive for autonomy with individuals with a PDA profile, changing the language is quite important because we change the story. Instead of viewing the person as resistant or defiant or oppositional, we begin to see someone whose nervous system is saying, I don't feel safe if I don't have control. We often over-personalize, right? So when somebody is saying no to us, or saying no, but they just don't seem to be doing as we request, it may be perceived that they're just trying to be disobedient to us, that they're just not listening to us. But actually, it could be a drive in themselves to not do something that their brain is telling them is unsafe. Now, this reframing shifts our approach. It changes it from, rather than trying to enforce our demands on them, to kind of go, well, hey, how can we help with this? Rather than just trying to go, well, if you're trying to control the situation, I need to control back. And we may be able to shift from control to collaboration instead, from compliance to compassion. And that's where progress can really happen. So in classrooms, care homes, families everywhere, individuals are realizing that traditional behavior strategies, things like sticker charts, consequences, firm boundaries, actually often fail for individuals with this need for autonomy. And that's because this isn't about won't, it's about can't right now. The individual isn't refusing to cooperate because they're just trying to annoy you. They're trying to regain safety in the only way that they know how, by reducing the demands placed on them. And recognizing that can change everything, change our perspective. So how might we recognize the signs that somebody is demand avoidant? Well, it can look very different from different people, but common patterns include an extreme anxiety when faced with everyday demands. We might find they use kind of clever strategies of redirection, distraction, negotiation, procrastination to delay or avoid compliance. I often say, like, all children do this to some degree or another. I often give the example to parents, like your child will come home from school and they spend all evening ignoring you, but then it comes time to bedtime and they then want to tell you all about their day. So they're not saying no to bedtime. They're just finding a clever way of kind of procrastinating it, if you like. The difference is that the next stage of that, if that doesn't work, children would often then comply. Whereas somebody with PDA may have to up their ante a little bit, trying to make sure they defend themselves from that request. And it might mean that if none of those tactics fail, none of their strategies fail, then suddenly the anxiety response to fight or flight kicks in. And this isn't because, hey, it's not going to work, I'm going to have a tantrum. It's, hey, my strategies haven't worked. I don't know what else to do. My brain's now telling me to go into fight or flight. This isn't a choice. It's all they have available if all other tactics fail. So individuals' demand avoidance, it doesn't respond well to, if you do this, then you'll get that. It doesn't, in fact, reward and consequence systems actually fall down really badly, and they can often make things worse because they reinforce a sense of control being taken away. And that includes things like praise, because praise is then putting expectations on a person of, you expect me to do this now and therefore I can't. And simple things that we do all the time, we forget how much compliance we're actually requesting. Let's say if I already started to shut down this laptop, for instance, but somebody just said to me, make sure you shut your laptop down. It may be a case of, now because you've told me, I can't do it. Even though I was doing it before, I can't do it. One lad described his PDA that he even experienced is with the family dog. The family dog came up with a stick in its mouth and dropped it at his feet. And he really didn't want to let the dog down. He didn't want to upset the dog. He didn't want to be mean to the dog, but he could not throw the stick. His brain would not let him. There is a thing that I think is worth understanding related to this PDA as well, that it isn't just a case of they can't expect or cope with any demand whatsoever. It is a case they almost have a threshold for how many they can manage. They may be almost masking and having to cope with a certain amount of expectations, demands. But we sometimes underestimate how many demands people are put on people all the time. Like, go and get dressed and ready for school isn't one demand. It is made up of lots as far as all of the individual tasks that are in there of getting washed, getting dressed, cleaning your teeth, brushing your hair, getting your shoes on, socks on, pants on, trousers on. The list could go on, and there are loads and loads of demands in there. And one way that it was described to me is, if you imagine you've almost got a clicker in your brain, and we're all allowed kind of 20 demands, but they hit that 20 and suddenly it's a case I can't do any more. You might be able to sneak one little one in, but actually that makes them more sensitive. So we have to try and find a way of reframing these expectations, this lack of autonomy by trying to give them as much autonomy. The instinct sometimes when somebody is doing behavior you think is to control, to then try and take all control away from them. But that's like somebody who's scared of spiders, stick them in a bathtub and cover them in spiders. It doesn't work. It just causes significant distress. It'll damage the relationship long term. And it's only going to increase anxiety. The opposite to anxiety is not calm, it's trust. So if I trust that you're looking out for me, that you're monitoring, and you know when I maybe need to drop the amount of demands that are being put on me, then I'm going to feel safer. I'm going to be able to cope with a few more than you'd expect because suddenly you've dropped the expectation of you. You made them less intense by the fact that you've not forcing them. So let's explore just a few approaches that can make a real difference. But this is a huge topic. We cover courses in it in much more detail. And this is a short little episode just to introduce the idea of what PDA is and what we can do. But the big thing is shifting from a mindset of command to collaboration. And one beautiful way it was put to me is rather than thinking, especially when you're talking to a friend or somebody in care, sometimes whether it be a child or an adult or anybody, sometimes there's a request to do things. But you wouldn't frame a request in a same way to your best friend than you would to, let's say, somebody in a workplace who is working for you. You might go, hey, would you mind helping me with this? Let's do this together. Oh, I'm going to be doing this. I'd love a bit of help if you wouldn't mind. Might be a little bit more beneficial than you need to do this. So collaboration involving the person in the decision about how and when tasks are done. So how do you think we should approach this? One tactic that can work quite well is almost feigning stupidity. I'm not sure how to go about this. I'm wondering if you can, you maybe not ask them directly, but I'm struggling to figure this out. I'm wondering maybe try it this way or maybe try it that way. And there's no necessary expectation for them to offer you any solution. But you're opening up the opportunity that if they choose to, if they can control the engagement, then they may be able to step in and start doing it with you. I guide you through it. It may be a nice, easy way of them bringing into it. It is a big thing that one individual with PDA sort of said that if a teacher is at the front of the class telling the students what to do, that feels overwhelming. But if the teacher is doing the same thing as all the students, sitting next to them actually doing it together, then it doesn't feel like an expectation or a demand. It feels like, hey, we're just doing this together. It reduces the intensity of the control, the demand. We can use indirect language as well. Would you like to? I'm wondering if it might be a good time to, instead of direct demands. We might even offer it as choices. So would you prefer to have a bath or a shower tonight? Would you prefer to have a shower at 6:30 or 7:00? Now, even if they say 6:45, they're still having a shower. We're just presenting in a way where we've got an overall kind of umbrella of keeping them safe and following protocols and routines, but we're giving them as much autonomy within that routine as we possibly can. The other thing that can be really beneficial is prioritizing what's actually really important. So you might make a list of all the demands that they might need to do in a day and kind of score them on a scale of 1 being doesn't really matter to 5 being absolutely essential. And if you notice somebody is struggling more, they're finding a harder time, we're getting a lot more requirement for autonomy, they might go, do you know what, all the 1s, 2s and 3s, let's just drop them today. The 4 or 5s, as long as they've got their trousers on, then we're all good. We might lower the expectations down significantly when somebody is struggling. And please don't mistake somebody struggling for manipulation. All of us know that some days we can find harder than others. And wouldn't it be nicer if somebody was able to kind of adjust the expectations of workload, what was required of you? Many of us can't set our boundaries to kind of go, do you know what? I'm really tired today. I don't think I can do what you want from me. Isn't it kind of good in some ways that individuals with PDA can actually express that? They may not express it in the right way, and let's work with them to help them to do that, where they feel it's okay to go, too much for me today. We try and make sure that whatever we feel would be beneficial for them to do is something that they're choosing and controlling rather than we're deciding they should do it. Structure and routine can really help reduce anxiety as well. It builds trust. What we say we're going to do, we do. But trust trust is the opposite to anxiety. So important. But lead with relationships. Make it about connection. Make it about fun. Make it about a positive, trusting connection with another person. And there are tools you could do. There's loads of different ways that people have found useful ways to support those with a PDA profile. Making things into games, making things into competition, having fun with it, making it collaborative. It's a different way of finding collaboration or cooperation, if you want to look at it like that. But there's loads of different examples out there that you can use. Obviously, we've only got a short time and there's so many more you can cover, but do search out there. There's some amazing information available for those supporting individual PDA. And I've got parents to do it before when they're working with a child with a PDA profile, for instance. They actually record their interactions and go back and gone, now look and analyze how many demands did you make just in that interaction, to get them to kind of reflect back on it and see where can they learn? How could they change the way they approach things? So ultimately, demand avoidance or a persistent drive for autonomy challenges us to rethink how we define cooperation, compliance, and respect. It invites us to meet people where they are rather than where we expect them to be. And it reminds us that autonomy isn't the enemy of connection, it's a foundation to it. We have so many ingrained scripts that a good child is a compliant child. A nice person does what we ask. So suddenly when we're encountering a child or an adult with a PDA profile, it can feel like they're not a good person. But that's just purely thoughts. It's not based on facts. It's not based on truth. And when we shift our mindsets from control to understanding, we don't just change behavior, we change lives. It allows us to see through a different lens, through different glasses, where we see the same person but in a completely different light. This isn't a person who's just trying to resist me. It's a person who's just trying to cope in a world that they find hard and difficult to understand. So there's one message that I'd like you to take away from today's episode is this. People don't resist support. They resist feeling powerless. By understanding and respecting a person's drive for autonomy, we can move from confrontation to collaboration. And when we do, everyone, caregivers, teachers, parents, and the individuals themselves can breathe just that little bit easier. Thank you for joining me. Please pass this on to anybody who would find it useful. And please share the information. Cheers.